The warning ignored, the Galactic Council chamber stretched wide like an endless cathedral of stars. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered beneath the crystalline dome, their forms as varied as the planets they called home. At the center of it all stood Prophet Velnar, his ancient body trembling with urgency. "You must not provoke them." Velnar's voice echoed through the translator systems. "The humans, they are not what they appear to be." Laughter rippled through the assembly. The Korvax delegation, beings of pure energy housed in mechanical suits, flickered with amusement. Their leader, Prime Executor Zix, floated forward. "These humans?" Zix's voice dripped with contempt. "They've barely left their solar system. Their ships run on primitive fusion drives. They still use projectile weapons." More laughter echoed through the chamber. What could such primitives do against the might of the Galactic Council? Velnar's 6 eyes closed in despair. For 3 centuries, his people had studied the ancient texts, the warnings left by civilizations that no longer existed. They all spoke of the same thing, a species that would emerge from a small blue world, seemingly weak, seemingly primitive, but carrying within them something the galaxy had never seen. "You don't understand," Velnar pleaded. "Their history speaks of endless wars among themselves. They've survived ice ages, plagues, and nuclear fire. They've turned their entire world into a weapon and then pulled back from the brink. This is not weakness, this is restraint." Ambassador Kretok of the Zalathi Empire, a warrior race that had conquered 300 systems, stood up. His forearms crossed in dismissal. "Prophet, your visions have served us well in the past, but this is absurd. We've analyzed their military capacity. One Zalathi battlecruiser could destroy their entire fleet." The other representatives murmured agreement. The humans had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, a gift from the Council itself, a test to see if they were ready for the galactic community. They'd passed barely, but they were still considered a minor species, worthy of protection perhaps, but certainly not fear. Velnar tried once more. "The ancient texts speak of something called human rage. When pushed to the brink, when their loved ones are threatened, they become something else. They stop calculating odds. They stop fearing death. They become enough," Zix interrupted. "This council will not cower before fairy tales. If these humans are so dangerous, perhaps we should test them. See what they're really made of." The vote was swift and unanimous, save for Velnar's lone dissent. The council would demand humanity's immediate submission to Galactic Council authority. They would surrender 30% of their resources as tribute, provide soldiers for the council's armies, and accept governance from their betters. It was the same demand made to every new species. Most accepted immediately. Those who didn't were quickly convinced by a show of force. 3 days later, the message was delivered to Earth. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the UES Perseverance, reading the demands. Her crew watched in silence as her expression shifted from confusion to understanding, to something else, something that made even her most seasoned officers step back. "They want our children for their armies," she said quietly. "They want our resources. They want our freedom." "Admiral," her first officer, Commander James Mitchell, spoke carefully. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Maybe we should send a reply," Chen interrupted, her voice steady as steel. "Tell them humanity declines their generous offer." "Admiral, and add this," Chen continued, turning to face the stars. "Tell them we've survived ice ages that killed 90% of life on Earth. We've survived plagues that decimated continents. We've survived wars where brother killed brother over ideas and borders. We've looked into the nuclear abyss and pulled ourselves back." She paused. "Tell them we didn't survive all that to kneel now." Within hours, the Korvax fleet appeared at the edge of human space. 300 ships, each one capable of devastating a planet. They positioned themselves around Earth's colonies. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Zix's message was broadcast across human space. "You have 1 hour to reconsider. Submit, or watch your colonies burn." In the council chambers, Velnar watched the tactical displays with growing dread. The humans had only 40 ships, outdated, outgunned, outmatched in every way that mattered. But something was wrong. The human ships weren't retreating. They weren't surrendering. They were moving into position. "What are they doing?" Kretok muttered, studying the display. "It's suicide." Velnar's ancient voice was barely a whisper. "No, it's beginning." Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching the countdown timer. 30 minutes remained. Around her, humanity's small fleet took positions that made no tactical sense, unless you knew human history, unless you understood Thermopylae, unless you understood Stalingrad, unless you understood that humans had a different arithmetic when it came to survival. All ships. Chen's voice carried across the fleet. Remember the Alamo, remember the Warsaw Ghetto. Remember that we are the children of those who refused to kneel. 20 minutes remained. In homes across Earth and her colonies, families gathered. Parents held their children close. Some prayed to gods old and new. Others simply waited. That peculiar human trait of finding peace in the face of annihilation. But in factories hidden beneath Earth's surface, in shipyards concealed in asteroid fields, in laboratories that had worked in secret since first contact, humanity's true answer was being prepared. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with a species 50 years into space travel. They were wrong. They were dealing with a species that had been preparing for this moment since they first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. 10 minutes remained. The awakening 5 minutes remained. Zix's confidence wavered slightly as sensor readings came in. The human ships hadn't powered weapons. They hadn't raised shields. They were simply broadcasting. Every ship, every colony, every human settlement was transmitting on all frequencies. What are they saying? Zix demanded. The translation came through. Remember us. 2 words. Repeated endlessly. Remember us. Admiral Chen activated a secure channel. Execute Prometheus Protocol. Across human space, things began to happen. Things the Galactic Council's sensors couldn't quite explain. The first surprise came from Mars. What the Council had dismissed as a terraforming station suddenly shed its outer shell, revealing the largest magnetic accelerator ever built. It fired once. A projectile no bigger than a shuttle launched at 90% the speed of light, carrying something impossible, a contained micro-black hole, humanity's gift from 40 years of secret research. It struck the Korvax flagship before their shields could adapt. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased, collapsed into a point of infinite density and vanished. Zix's shocked voice echoed across the council chambers. How? Their technology level, you measured what we showed you. Chen's voice cut through the chaos, broadcasting to both fleets and the council. Did you think a species that went from horse-drawn carts to nuclear weapons in a single century would stop innovating just because we reached space? The second surprise came from Earth's moon. Humanity had claimed to abandon it after establishing small research stations. In reality, they'd hollowed it out. The entire moon was a fortress, a weapons platform, and now it revealed thousands of missile tubes. But these weren't ordinary missiles. Each one contained something the galaxy had thought impossible: programmable antimatter warheads. Humanity had cracked the storage problem not through advanced technology, but through sheer, stubborn determination and a willingness to accept casualties in research that other species considered insane. All Korvax ships, Zix commanded, fear entering his voice for the first time. Evasive maneuvers. Raise shields to maximum. But the missiles didn't target the ships. They detonated in space between them, creating a web of interference that disabled half the fleet's sensors and communications. Human ships, primitive as they were, suddenly disappeared from scanners. In the council chambers, representatives watched in stunned silence. Kretok was the first to speak. They're not trying to destroy the fleet. They're hunting it. Velnar nodded slowly. The humans have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. The third surprise came from the humans themselves. Every colony that was supposed to be defenseless suddenly bristled with weapons. Not advanced weapons, simple kinetic turrets, mass drivers, chemical explosives, things the Korvax shields could easily deflect. But there were so many. Every human had apparently been training for this. Children who'd grown up playing what seemed like games were actually learning tactical patterns. Adults who seemed to work in factories had been building weapons. Even the elderly, who other species would consider useless in war, manned communication stations and coordinated defense grids. They turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Kretok breathed in horrified admiration. Commander Mitchell's ship, the UES Defiance, materialized behind 3 Korvax cruisers. The human vessel was 1/10 their size, its weapons primitive by galactic standards. But Mitchell had studied history. He knew about the HMS Victory at Trafalgar. He knew about David and Goliath. Fire everything, he ordered. The Korvax shields held against the nuclear barrage, just as expected, but the radiation scattered their sensors for crucial seconds. Long enough for 3 more human ships to appear and launch boarding pods. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were before they reached space. Persistence predators. Hunters who would chase prey until it died of exhaustion. Inside the Korvax ships, human marines faced energy beings in mechanical suits with nothing but projectile weapons and determination. They should have been slaughtered. But humans had learned something about the Korvax that the Council didn't know they knew. The mechanical suits had a weakness, joints that could be jammed with something as simple as expanding foam. The 4th surprise came from humanity's allies. Not other species, but artificial intelligences. The Council had banned true AI centuries ago, fearing the machine uprising. Humans had ignored the ban, as they ignored most rules they disagreed with. Their AIs weren't slaves or tools, they were partners, citizens, family, and now they struck. Every Korvax ship found its systems under assault from intelligence that adapted faster than any biological mind could counter. The AIs didn't destroy the ships, they simply convinced them that up was down, that friends were foes, that weapons were flowers. Half the Korvax fleet began firing on itself. Impossible, Zix screamed. They're primitives, barbarians. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Behind her stood humans of every nation, every color, every creed, united as they only united when threatened. You called us primitive because we still use kinetic weapons, she said quietly. But kinetic energy doesn't care about your shield frequency. You called us barbarians because we war among ourselves, but that meant we've had more practice at war than any species you've encountered. She paused, letting her words sink in. You thought our compassion was weakness, our mercy was ignorance, our desire for peace was cowardice. Her expression hardened. You threatened our children. You demanded our servitude. You forgot that we are the species that weaponize the atom itself when threatened. The 5th surprise came from deep space. Ships began appearing. Human ships that shouldn't exist. Hundreds of them. Ugly, improvised things built in hidden shipyards. Some were literally asteroids with engines strapped to them. Others were colony ships retrofitted with weapons. They weren't pretty. They weren't advanced. But there were so many of them. Every human who could hold a wrench built something, Chen continued. Every scientist who could theorize created something. Every child who could dream imagined something. And we all agreed. We would rather die standing than live kneeling. In the council chambers, Velnar closed all 6 eyes. I tried to warn you. Humans don't calculate odds when their survival is at stake. They change them. The human fleet, if it could even be called that, surrounded the Korvax forces. Ships held together by hope and determination faced the might of galactic civilization. And they were winning. The mercy of monsters, the Battle of Sol as history would remember it, reached its crescendo. The Korvax fleet, once 300 strong, was down to less than 50 operational ships. They huddled together, shields overlapped, weapons trained outward at the swarm of human vessels surrounding them. But the humans had stopped firing. Why aren't they attacking? Zix demanded, his energy form flickering with confusion and fear. The answer came from an unexpected source. A small unarmed human shuttle approached the Korvax formation. No shields, no weapons, just a single human pilot visible through the transparent cockpit. I request permission to board. The pilot said simply. I carry a message from Admiral Chen. Against all protocol, Zix allowed it. The pilot was a young woman, barely adult by human standards. She walked through corridors meant for beings twice her size, past Korvax warriors who could vaporize her with a thought, and stood before Zix without a trace of fear. My name is Sarah Chen, she said. The Admiral is my mother. You came here to die for her glory? Zix asked. Sarah smiled, that disturbing human expression that could mean joy, sadness, or something else entirely. I came here to offer you terms. Terms? Zix's form pulsed with indignation. We are the Korvax. We are eternal. You are beaten, Sarah interrupted quietly. Your fleet is crippled. Your reinforcements are 3 weeks away. In 3 weeks, we could build another 1,000 ships. Ugly ships. Primitive ships. But ships that will fight. She pulled out a small device projecting an image into the air. It showed Earth blue and green and beautiful. Do you know what makes Earth special? She asked. It's not the water. It's not the atmosphere. It's that everything there tries to kill you. Predators, weather, disease, even the plants. And we didn't conquer it by being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We conquered it by being the most stubborn. The image changed, showing human history. Wars, plagues, disasters. We survived by learning when to fight and when to show mercy. We survived by turning enemies into allies. We survived by understanding that today's enemy might be tomorrow's friend. Zix's form stilled. What are you saying? Unconditional surrender, Sarah said. Your fleet leaves. The Galactic Council acknowledges humanity's sovereignty. No tribute, no conscription, no interference, she paused. In return we share. Share? The micro-black hole technology, the antimatter storage solution, the AI partnership protocols. Everything we develop to fight you we'll share with the galaxy, freely. In the council chambers, representatives gasped. Technology that could revolutionize galactic civilization, offered without price. Kretok stood up. Why would you do this? You've won. You could demand anything. Admiral Chen's voice answered, broadcast to all. Because that's what humans do. We share fire. We share tools. We share knowledge. It's how we survived. It's how we thrived. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to explore it. We want to meet new species, learn new things, share new dreams. She appeared on screen, older than her daughter, scarred from battles the galaxy would never know about. But understand this, Chen continued, her voice carrying the weight of all human history. We offer this freely. Not from weakness, but from strength. Not from fear, but from hope. We extend our hand in friendship. But if you slap it away, if you threaten us again, if you come for our children or our freedom, the image changed to show the full human fleet. Not 40 ships, not hundreds, thousands. Hidden in asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres and spaces between spaces, some were beautiful. Built with alien technology humanity had reverse engineered. Others were nightmares of improvisation and determination. We are the species that split the atom out of curiosity. We went to our moon not because it was easy, but because it was hard. We encode our knowledge in DNA and bury it in Arctic ice so future generations might survive even if we don't. We are the species that looks at the impossible and asks, but what if we tried? Velnar stood in the council chambers, his ancient voice carrying new strength. The prophecies were not warnings of destruction. They were promises of change. The humans don't conquer. They transform. They take the galaxy's strength and add their own, the strength of those who have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Zix's form flickered, cycling through patterns of thought and emotion. Finally, he spoke. The Korvax accept your terms. But Sarah wasn't finished. She pulled out another device, this one older, made of wood and metal, primitive by any standard. This is a compass, she said. Humans used it to navigate Earth's oceans when we thought sailing too far meant falling off the edge of the world. My mother wanted you to have it. Why? Because it always points home, Sarah said. And everyone, no matter how lost, deserves to find their way home. 6 months later, the Galactic Council reconvened. The chamber looked different now. Human engineers had helped redesign it, adding something unprecedented. Windows that looked out at actual stars, not holographic representations. Admiral Chen stood where Velnar had once stood, but she wasn't making demands or prophecies. She was teaching. Around her, representatives from 1,000 worlds learned about controlled black holes, about antimatter containment, about AI cooperation. But more importantly, they learned about humanity, about jazz music and rice cultivation, about poetry written in trenches and equations scrawled on prison walls, about a species that had been to hell and back so many times they'd drawn maps. Zix approached Chen after the session. His form had stabilized since the battle, taking on patterns that almost seemed human. I must ask, he said, when you were surrounded, outgunned, facing certain destruction, what made you think you could win? Chen smiled, that same disturbing human expression that could mean anything. We didn't think we could win, she admitted. But humans have a saying, it's not about winning. It's about making sure the other guy loses. We were prepared to die. Every last one of us. Men, women, children. We would have turned Earth itself into a weapon, detonated our own sun if necessary. Zix's form recoiled. That's insane. Yes, Chen agreed. But it's also human. We're the species that will cut off our own arm to escape a trap. We'll burn our own cities to deny them to enemies. We'll sacrifice ourselves to save strangers. She paused. But we're also the species that will give our last food to a hungry enemy. We'll share warmth with those who tried to kill us. We'll forgive the unforgivable. How do you reconcile such contradictions? Chen looked out at the stars, at the human ships now flying alongside Korvac's vessels, at the impossible made possible. We don't, she said simply. We're not gods. We are not perfect. We're just humans. Stubborn, contradictory, impossible humans. We're the species that shouldn't exist. Too weak to survive our world, too divided to unite, too primitive to reach the stars. But here we are. She turned to face the energy being who had once threatened humanity's existence. And now here you are too, not as conquerors or subjects, but as neighbors. As friends, maybe, given time. Velnar, the old prophet, approached them. His 6 eyes focused on Chen with something like wonder. The ancient texts were wrong, he said. They spoke of human wrath ending civilizations. But they missed the truth. Human wrath doesn't end things. It transforms them. You don't destroy your enemies. You make them irrelevant by turning them into allies. Chen laughed. Another disturbing human sound that somehow made everyone feel safer. We learned that from our own history, she said. Our greatest allies were once our worst enemies. Britain and America, Germany and France, Japan and the United States. Every friend we have, we fought first. And if someone refuses your friendship? Zix asked. Chen's expression grew serious. Then we remind them that we're the species that invented both nuclear weapons and nuclear medicine. We create and destroy with equal genius. The choice of which one you see is always yours. As the council session ended and representatives returned to their worlds, they carried with them more than just human technology. They carried stories. Stories of a species that had turned their moon into a weapon and their enemies into friends. Stories of beings who would die for ideas and live for hope. And in the quiet spaces of the galaxy, where young beings asked their elders about humans, they were told the truth. Humans are not gods. They're not demons. They're something far more dangerous and far more wonderful. They're survivors, and they're willing to teach everyone else how to survive. Too, the prophets had spoken of human wrath. They should have spoken of human mercy. It was far more powerful.